Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So welcome everybody for the Sunday morning session on Science of Self-Realization. Today we're going to bring you a very interesting topic known as spiritual communism. So we have been hearing about this word communism. That we are very familiar with this word communism. So what is the Vedic perspective of this word communism is what we are going to see in this session and the few more sessions going forward. So this particular topic is based on the wonderful talk happened between Prabhupada and a Russian professor of Indology. Prabhupada was traveling across the world. And as we know, Prabhupada started his movement in the year 1966 in New York, America. And after that, he had sent few of his American disciples to go to England, London, and open a center there. In that way, slowly, the disciples of Prabhupada, followers of Prabhupada, were all basically from Western countries. They started going to different parts of the world and wanted to spread the message of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavata as taught by Prabhupada. Prabhupada was very eager to go to Soviet Union, present Russia. That was very, very much a stronghold of communism at that time. So Prabhupada was very much eager that we had to go and reach out this message to these communistic countries. So during that time, in 1970s, the Russian subcontinent was completely under the control of communistic way of ideology, right? So the definition of communism, as we see from the various sources, is that the type of government as well as the economic system wherein the individual does not own the land or factory or machinery. Instead, the government or the whole community owns these things. And it's basically to create a sort of a classless society, right? In which the major productions from the mines or factories are owned and controlled by the public or the government. But this is the type of ideology which was very much being followed in Russia at that point of time, and even now there are many countries in the world following this idea of communism. So Prabhupada somehow he wrote a letter to one of the university professors in Russia, and he got an invitation, and Prabhupada went there. Prabhupada was hoping that he would have some speaking engagement in a university about the Vedic understanding. But unfortunately, because of the strong communistic way of government, they were not allowing any sort of a religious activity or propagation of religious beliefs in the community or society. So Prabhupada was restricted to stay in his hotel room, and Prabhupada happened to meet this Professor Katowski in his room, and we had a long conversation about the Vedic concept of many, many wonderful ideas, and also on the important aspect of communism, what was prevalent in Russia at that point of time. Prabhupada gave a Vedic perspective of communism. So this whole series of sessions we are going to have in the next few weeks, we're going to have this particular topic being discussed. So this is the topic, spiritual communism. Today is the part 1 of this topic. And as I told you, Prabhupada's wonderful contribution to the entire world is to give these teachings of Vedic understanding in a very, very easily understandable manner. But everybody around the world understands this whole Vedic understanding and lead a life of complete satisfaction and bliss and perfect their lives. Right? So we owe a great sense of gratitude to Prabhupada for his wonderful contribution. So in 1971, during his historic visit to the Soviet Union, Srila Prabhupada was introduced to Professor Grigory Kotovsky, head of the Indian department at the USSR Academy of Sciences and chairman of the Indian Studies Department at the University of Moscow. As they sat informally in Kotovsky's office, the spiritual leader and the communist scholar vigorously discussed topics of mutual concern, and Srila Prabhupada proposed a radical reformation within modern communism. So Prabhupada didn't have any engagements with regard to speaking to the outside world. Rather, Prabhupada took every opportunity so that he could at least convince whomever he was able to interact with, because there was a very strict police and other vigilance with regard to distribution of any literature or talking about anything about religion. Right? Religion, anything about religion is considered to be a criminal activity in the communist countries. So this was the background with which Prabhupada had gone to Soviet Union, the present Russia. So you can see how Prabhupada has taken a risk, because Prabhupada, in fact, later on he recalls, we were carrying Bhagavad Gita with us, but we didn't know if they have somehow they found us to be some religious propagandists. They would have taken us to some remote area, and then we would have been completely isolated in that way, and then they would do anything what they want, right? Because there has been a sort of a operation and a fight between the fundamental religionists and the government, right? So there's a lot of friction. So the government has taken a very iron stand with regard to religious propaganda. So Prabhupada was saying, it is Krishna's grace that we have somehow entered the country and then we are able to touch few people. And during this time, Prabhupada happened to meet one youth, and he planted the seed of Krishna consciousness in that youth. And later on, from that particular young boy, the whole Krishna consciousness started spreading in the Soviet Union. Now you can see in Russia, there's so many temples and so many devotees, thousands of devotees across the country. In fact, Russia, according to the Vedic conception, is a land of rishis. Right? A lot of rishis used to live there in that country. That's why that word Russia has come, rishis. The great sages used to live. But the Vedic conception is all forgotten, and now it has become one more type of a country. Basically, Prabhupada wanted to understand, to give this knowledge to everybody, because everybody is spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. That's the understanding. And now let's get into the details of the discussion. The Vedic conception of communism is what Prabhupada is going to speak throughout this whole talk with the professor. So Prabhupada starts a very informal way of talk with the Kotovsky, because they both are informally meeting. The other day I was reading the newspaper, Moscow News. There was a communist congress, and the president declared, we are ready to take others' experience to improve. Right? So Prabhupada happened to come across a wonderful piece of news from the Moscow newspaper that the communist leaders are open for any ideas for improvement. So I think the Vedic concept of socialism or communism will much improve the idea of communism. So the idea of communism, which the communist countries are following, was having some limitation. Prabhupada is going to, expose all those points in his talk. So Prabhupada wanted to give the broader understanding of the Vedic concepts, Vedic, conception, so that the countries which are following communism can get a proper perspective of how to follow things. For example, in a socialistic state, the idea is that no one should starve. Everyone must have his food. Just now, in the beginning of our session, we discussed communist state means the owner is the state, the public, and everybody should be equally treated. That is the idea. So, with that in the background, we can say that this is what the Vedic conception also is. The socialistic state of idea is that no one should starve. Everybody should get their food. In fact, the Vedic conception is that a grihastha, a householder, it is recommended that a householder see that even a lizard or a snake living in his house should not starve. Right? Lizard is considered to be a pest or unwanted, animal in our house. But even that lizard or a snake is considered to be enemy. Right? It is all, if it is part of your house or is staying in the one part of the house, they should also not be starved. Just see the Vedic conception. Very, very broad understanding. Every living entity should be given food for its subsistence. Even these lower creatures should be given food, and certainly all humans should. So the Vedic conception is everybody is part and parcel of God. Everybody should be taken care. It is recommended that the grihastha, before taking his lunch, should stand on the road and declare, if anyone is still hungry, please come, food is ready. This is the Vedic understanding, Vedic conception. A grihastha, the householder, is that person who is actually earning in society, who is getting some income. So his responsibility is to take care of the people in society, whatever he can. So before he takes his food, he's supposed to go outside his house and stand on the street and call loudly 3 times. If anybody is hungry, please come. Food is ready. Right? If nobody comes, then he has to come and enter the house and then take his food. That was the system. Just see how wonderful the Vedic conception is. So if there is no response, then the proprietor of the household takes his lunch. So modern society takes the people as a whole as the proprietor of a certain state. The modern idea of communism is this. But the Vedic conception is what? See, side by side, Prabhupada starts giving the comparison. The Vedic conception is Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Everything is owned by Isha, the supreme controller. Right? The state may declare that we are the owners of this land. But originally, the state belongs to whom? The land belongs to whom? Right? The whole material creation is actually creation of God. Right? So the Vedic conception is that God is the supreme controller of everything what we see around us. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. You may enjoy what is allotted to you by him. This is a statement from one of the Upanishads, what we are discussing now. Everything is owned and controlled by God, and every living entity is given its due share. A tiger is given its food, elephant is given its food, humans are given their food. Right? Like this, everybody is allotted some things to enjoy for their personal enjoyment. Ma gradaha kasyasvit dhanam. The same statement of Ishopanishad continuing, but do not encroach upon others' property. This is Ishopanishad. Means what is allotted to you, you should be happy with that. Not that you do something which is against the established laws of nature, which Krishna has created. Right? Human beings are supposed to eat food from vegetable kingdom after offering it to Krishna. This is the way you're supposed to have your allotted food. But human beings right now are trying to satisfy their tongue by opening slaughterhouses, killing innocent animals. That is not the law of nature for you. So which means you're encroaching upon others' property. Right now, what all wars are going on across the world is only because of one country wanting to encroach upon another country's property. We want to own that piece of land. We are the owners. We are the proprietors. This conception. This is what is going on right now in the modern day concept. So, Prabhupada is giving us the Vedic conception of communism, that everything is owned by Krishna, and for everybody there is proper necessities given by Krishna, and we should not encroach upon others' property. This is the Ishopanishadic statement, version, Vedic conception of what is actually communism. The same idea is explained in the different Puranas. This Vedic conception of communism is very nicely elaborated in different scriptures, Puranas, Upanishads. There are many good concepts in the Vedic literature about communism. So Prabhupada is talking to this Professor Katowski, telling how very wonderful concepts about the Vedic literature. So I thought that these ideas should be distributed to you, to your most thoughtful men. Therefore, I was anxious to speak. This image you're seeing is Prabhupada when he was in Russia. The devotee accompanying him was carrying a small camera with him. So he took few images. That is the only memory we have about Prabhupada being in Russia. So Prabhupada is telling, you people are thoughtful, and then we want some good ideas to be given to you. So I was anxious to speak. This is the nature of a pure devotee, that he wants to spread this message of Vedic understanding. And the professor talks now. We'll start giving some background about what is going on in Russia. And Russians are taking interest in Vedic studies, he says. The professor says, it is interesting that here in our country, there is now great interest in the history of old thought. So the Russians are taking a lot of interest in the Vedic literatures. From this point of view, our institute translated into Russian and published many literary monuments of great Indian culture. The professor is talking and telling that a lot of Vedic literatures we have translated into Russian language, and people are taking great interest. You will be interested to discover that we have published some of the Puranas and parts of the Ramayana in Russian language. There are volumes in Russian of Mahabharata, and also a second edition of Mahabharata translated in full. So which means a lot of Vedic literatures like Ramayana and Mahabharata were all translated into the Russian language, and they're all studying them. It's good indication. We have also published the full translation of Manusmriti with Sanskrit commentaries. Yes, see, so only Vedic literatures, they're taking interest. Interest in these publications was so great that they sold out in a week. People are anxious to know what is there in Vedic literatures. They are now completely out of stock. It was impossible to get them in the book market after a month. There's a great interest among reading people here in Moscow and the USSR toward ancient Vedic culture. And from this point of view, we published many such books. So the professor is acknowledging that, yes, the Vedic conception is very much popular in our country, and then many people are reading a lot of Vedic literatures translated in Russian language, and we have been publishing many books. Now, Prabhupada is going to talk about the importance of the Vedic literatures, and especially the most important Vedic literature called as Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says, among these Puranas, the Srimad Bhagavatam is called the Mahapurana. Mahapurana. Why? Because, Prabhupada says, we have translated the full text. If anybody has seen the way Prabhupada's books, especially Bhagavata, Bhagavad Gita are, the full Sanskrit text, original Sanskrit text, Prabhupada says, first we present the original Sanskrit text as it is. Its transliteration, exactly the Sanskrit written in the way anybody in the world can read. That is called transliteration, which means with a proper diacritic marks. Even an American can read, a Russian can read, Australian can read, European can read. Anybody reads that English transliteration of the Sanskrit words, they'll read the same way. And there is a English equivalent for each word to word meaning is given in English, then the translation, then a purport or explanation of the verse. This is how Prabhupada has given a very authentic and a scholarly way of presentation of Vedic literatures. Prabhupada is telling that. In this way, there are 18,000 verses in Srimad Bhagavatam. We are translating everything literally, you can see. Prabhupada is offering, yes, we have been translating and we have published also few of the parts of Bhagavatam, and we can present you them. Each and every verse is being done like that for the whole Bhagavata Purana. And Prabhupada is telling all these things because the Russian professor was telling that people are very keen. We have translated many books into Russian Vedic literatures. Prabhupada says, yes, we have Bhagavatam also, which is very important literature, and we have done a very scholarly translation of them and commentary of them. And and every verse of 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam is being done like this. And the opinion of the Acharyas, the great saintly sages, who are the preachers of the Bhagavata philosophy, is all presented very nicely in this Bhagavata. And Bhagavatam itself says that it is Nigama Kalpa Taror Galitam Phalam. This is the ripened fruit of the Vedic desire tree. Very nice statement. Bhagavata, very beginning, it says that this whole Vedic literature is compared to a wish-fulfilling tree or a kalpa vriksha, kalpa taror, and it's very vast. And this Bhagavatam is considered to be the fruit or the essence of this whole Vedic literatures, which is actually like a desire tree. That's the point. So Bhagavatam is the essence, the ripened fruit. What do you expect from a tree? A fruit. From a mango tree, you expect a mango fruit that is ripened, which is ripened, is very relishable. Likewise, this Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the entire Vedic desire tree, which means it is very essential literature, very important literature. Prabhupada is trying to impress upon the professor. Also, it is accepted by all the Indian scholars, and Lord Chaitanya especially preached this Bhagavatam. Why it is of even more importance to us? Why? Because Krishna's incarnation, known as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, himself preached the Bhagavatam. Right? That's why it is very important literature which everybody has to read. So we have the complete Bhagavatam in its English translation. If you want to see it, I can show you. Prabhupada is saying, yes, we have this Bhagavatam with us. We'll show you. This also you can start telling your people to read. So Prabhupada's proposal was indirectly. So the professor continues to talk. It seems to me that in the Moscow and Leningrad libraries, we have nearly all the major texts of ancient Indian culture, beginning from the Vedas, the original text in the Sanskrit. For instance, in the Leningrad branch of our institute, there are 6 or 8 editions of Manusmriti. Just see how Western countries, people are so interested in Vedic literatures. The professor is telling, we have very big libraries and collection of Vedic literatures. And this Manusmriti, we only heard the name, but they have the complete translation of them in Russian language for their understanding. Manusmriti is a literature given by Manu himself, who is the father of mankind for the guidance of the entire human society. This institute was founded in the Imperial Russia in Leningrad. So in Leningrad, we now have a branch of our institute dealing mainly with the history of Asiatic culture. You see how the Western countries, they are taking interest in the Vedic literature, Vedic understanding. You will find here an account of what is being translated and what studies are being done on the history of Indian religion and also the state of Indian religion, Hinduism, in India, in Hindu India today. So this was the, like when Prabhupada met this professor, a very wonderful initial pleasant exchange was going on. Prabhupada was saying that, yes, we want to give some ideas from Vedic understanding about to further have a better communistic way of life. And this professor is acknowledging, yes, we also have a lot of Vedic literatures being studied. The people are also taking interest in them. And we are also studying about Hinduism. So Prabhupada further talks now. He says, he gives a wonderful understanding about what is Hinduism and what is Varnashrama in his next conversation. next continuous relation of talk. Prabhupada says Hinduism is a very complex topic. The professor acknowledges, oh yes, really, to my understanding, it is not a religion. From the European point of view, it is a way of life. Religion, philosophy, a way of life, whatever you want. It's even the Western philosophers and the great scholars have acknowledged that the Hinduism is a way of life. Right? It is not simply some philosophy. And Prabhupada gives a further clarification. The word Hindu is not a Sanskrit word. It was given by the Mohammedans. You know that there is a river called Indus, which in Sanskrit is called Sindhu. Indus River, Indus civilization, you have heard in history. Right? There is a river called Sindhu, separating Indian subcontinent from the other countries in the Middle East. The Mohammedans pronounce S as H, Sa as Ha, they call. Instead of Sindhu, they made it Hindu, right? Pronunciation. So Hindu is a term that is not found in the Sanskrit dictionary, but it has come into use. Basically, the word Hindu is a word which is coined by the Muslims, Mohammedans, because they couldn't pronounce the word Sindhu, river Sindhu's name, they call it as Hindu. People who are living this side of the Sindh river, they want to call them Hindus, Sindhus basically. Instead of Sir, they call it as H. So this Hindu is a word not found in the Vedic literature, but it is being popularized in this way because of the commonly being used terminology of people staying in this part of the world. But the real cultural institution is called Varnashrama. The actual cultural institution, or the way the society was developed in the Indian subcontinent, is called Varnashrama. What is Varnashrama? Varnashrama means there are 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. Varna means social division. Society is divided into 4 social divisions: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And 4 ashramas, they are called spiritual divisions: Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. We'll understand more about this as we move forward. So Varnashrama is basically the division of society in terms of work, social divisions, and the 4 spiritual divisions: 4 Varnas, 4 ashramas, Varnashrama. According to the Vedic concept of life, unless people take to the system or institution of 4 Varnas and 4 ashramas, actually they do not become civilized human beings. There's a statement in the scriptures. Unless people take up this Varnashrama way of life, they are considered to be uncivilized, or they are living a life of animals. Because Varnashrama is the system which Krishna himself has given in the entire world. The society is divided into these 4 Varnas, 4 ashramas based on the inclination of the work. Later on we'll see, Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita Krishna says that this division of society is very natural. Because this division is making everybody to do their specific duties and also to understand the purpose of life, goal of life. The goal of life is to go back to spiritual world. So end the cycle of birth and death and return to spiritual world. That particular aspect is being very much stressed in the Varnashrama, and that way the whole life is centered and it is structured in that way. So the Vedic concept of life means you have to follow Varnashrama. If you're not following, presently in the present day human society, all over the world, people have forgotten this Varnashrama and they're all doing things on their own. That's the problem. One has to take to this process of 4 divisions of social orders and 4 divisions of spiritual orders. That is called Varnashrama. Okay. So this is actually very natural. It is already present in the human society. Just that we have to align ourselves in this way of working and perfect our lives. That is what the Vedic scriptures are giving directions. The whole Bhagavad Gita is talking about this. Hmm. So India's culture is based on this age-old Vedic system called Varnashrama. Varna, 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. So the professor acknowledges the word Varnashrama. Varnashrama, and in the Bhagavad Gita, perhaps you have read the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada asks, the professor says, yes, I have read the Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita Krishna says, the statement by Lord Krishna, Chatur Varnyam Maya System. This system was created by Vishnu, God himself. So since Varnashrama is a creation of the Supreme, it cannot be changed. It's like the government creates some system. All the citizens have to follow. Any law the government makes, every citizen is supposed to be abiding by the law. Likewise, the Varnashrama is a creation of the Supreme Lord. It cannot be changed. It has to be strictly abided by. It is prevalent everywhere. It is like the sun. The sun is a creation of the Supreme. Prabhupada is giving an example. It's like the sun's rays are everywhere, all pervading. Likewise, Lord has created his Varnashrama. It's not it's not human-made. It is God's creation. Varnashrama is a God's creation. Varnashrama means division of society into 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. The sunshine is there in America, in Russia, and India, everywhere. It's common. Wherever you go, you see sun and sunshine everywhere. Likewise, Prabhupada says, the Varnashrama also is prevalent everywhere in some form or other. How it is so, Prabhupada explains. Take, for example, the Brahmanas, the most intelligent class of men. They are brains of society. Brahmana means the intellectual class. And Kshatriyas are the administrative class. The rulers, politicians, modern day politicians. And the Brahmanas, modern day, you see, scientists, thinkers, philosophers. The Vaishyas are the productive class. The businessmen, farmers, bankers, they're all Vaishyas. Shudras are the worker class, labor class, right? They have an equivalent in different shape and form in the entire world. Prabhupada wanted to say, you cannot make a classless society. Later on there will be a discussion on this. Because communist country means classless society, no classes, everybody is same. Prabhupada says, no, that is not possible. There should be a different divisions of society. Only then society can function in a harmonious way. If you make it classless, then it is not a proper society which God has created. And there should be divisions of classes, and there should be a proper understanding of work culture. Then only it is proper. So these 4 classes of men are prevalent everywhere under different names. Intellectual class, the administrative class, Kshatriya, the mercantile class is called Vaishyas, and the worker class is called Shudras. Because it is created by the original creator, so it is prevalent everywhere. That is why it's called as Varnashrama Dharma. So everybody will fall under one of these categories. So Prabhupada says further, Varnashrama is created by Lord Krishna and is existing from creation. In the very beginning of creation, it is existing. Prabhupada substantiates. So Professor has his opinions and his some suggestions. It's interesting that in the opinion of some European and old Russian scholars, this Varnashrama system is a later creation. Prabhupada was telling from the beginning of creation it is there. But his professor, from his scholarly research and studies, he's telling, yeah, some European Russian scholars say it is created a little later. And if you would read the old text of Vedic literature, you would find a much more simple and agrarian society. So he's giving his own version, this professor, from his limited understanding. He says, yes, when we read Vedic literatures, you see some very simple society being governed in the Vedic literatures, he's saying. It is the opinion of these scholars that the Varnashrama system was introduced in Indian society in the late age of the Vedic era, but not from the beginning. So there's a difference of opinion. Prabhupada says it is from the beginning of creation, as Krishna's statement in Bhagavad Gita is, whereas this professor is telling, no, it has been later on introduced in the Indian society. So we'll see what Prabhupada will say for this particular opinion. And this professor is further continuing. And if you would analyze the old texts, you would find that in the old classical India, it was not so prevalent. So this shows the limitation of the understanding of Vedic literatures from the scholastic point of view. It's very important to note here, because when you're going through this conversation between Prabhupada and this Western scholar, Vedic scholar, the Russian scholar, you see Prabhupada's way of understanding the Vedic literatures is from the parampara, disciplic succession, Guru Shishya parampara. So Vedic literatures cannot be understood from the scholastic point of view. Scholarly only you can understand maybe the information only. But the spirit of Vedic literatures can be understood only by the Guru Shishya parampara. That is called disciplic succession. Right? So Prabhupada is coming in that Guru Shishya parampara from Lord Chaitanya, from Lord Krishna. So that's why he is able to give this knowledge in a very authentic manner. That's why Prabhupada has translated Bhagavad Gita and given the version of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Otherwise, everybody will start commenting and giving their own version, just like you see us now. The professor has his own version of, oh no, Varnashrama was later introduced in Indian society. It has no such relevance from creation. So many things he's telling, right? So Prabhupada is going to clarify this point now and make him very clearly understand, no, Varnashrama is actually introduced from the age-old, from the very beginning of creation, and Lord God himself created this. Krishna, who is creator of this world, he has created this. So Prabhupada is going to give the Vedic understanding. As far as we are concerned, it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? We are taking the authority of Bhagavad Gita. And what does Bhagavad Gita say? Krishna says, Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken 5,000 years ago. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, the system of the Bhagavad Gita was spoken by me to the Sun God. So in the Bhagavad Gita itself, we find the history of Bhagavad Gita. At least for our understanding, we know Bhagavad Gita was spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra 5,000 years ago to Arjuna. Much before that, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that I have spoken this Gita knowledge to Sun God many millions of years ago. From 40 million years ago. Sun God spoke to his son, Manu. And Manu spoke to his son, Ikshvaku. This is a history Bhagavad Gita gives us, relating the proper understanding of when Bhagavad Gita was spoken first. So Krishna himself says this. I spoke this knowledge to Sun God, which means it's very old. In the beginning of creation, it is there. So it is not proper to just tell that, it has just come about now. So if you take an estimation of that period, it comes to 40 million years ago. Right? So can the European scholars trace back history of 5,000 years? Can they go back 40 million years? Not possible. Because presently, the archaeologists or the historians, maximum they can have a history of 2,000, 3,000 years. They cannot go back some millions of years ago. Whereas the Vedic culture, Sanatana culture, is age-old. It is eternal. That's why it's called Sanatana. Sanatana means it is ever existing. Just like now it is winter season. After winter goes, we'll get a wonderful season of spring, and then summer, then rainy season. Like this, the cyclic way of seasons are changing. Similarly, the different ages also keep changing. Right? The age what we are living right now is called Kali Yuga. And before this, there was Dwapar Yuga. And before that, there was Treta Yuga. And beginning, we had Satya Yuga. And these 4 yugas are going on in a cyclic manner. And Satya Yuga, the Kali Yuga, what we are living right now, is having a period of 4,32,000 years, out of which 5,000 years have passed. End of Kurukshetra war, Kali Yuga began. So Kurukshetra war happened 5,000 years ago. So in that way, the Kali Yuga has begun, and now it is still having a span of 4,27,000 years. 5,000 years is gone. And the Yuga before this, Dwapar Yuga, the Kali Yuga's duration double, that is around 8,64,000 years. And come to Treta Yuga, it is triple of Kali Yuga's duration, around 13 lakh years. Satya Yuga is 4 times Kali Yuga's duration, that is around 17 lakh. So if you add this 17, 13, 8.64 and 4.32, it will come to around 43 lakh years. This is the one cycle of 4 yugas. And Brahma's day is 1,000 cycles of these 4 yugas. And according to Bhagavad Gita's version, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita when specific period of this one day of Brahma, because every day of Brahma, Krishna appears. So like this, very wonderful perspective is given about the time in the Vedic literatures. So we have a very limited understanding about time. Few hundred years, few thousand years history. But Vedic literatures gives us history of millions and millions of years ago. Right? Some millennium and some age which was spoken. So for the Vedic literatures to keep the record, historical record in a chronological order is not significant, not important. Why? Because what all record you're going to keep? What is very relevant and important, only those records are being passed on in the Vedic literatures by Shravanam, by hearing, Shruti, as what it is mentioned. So Prabhupada is telling, Bhagavad Gita itself is giving us the history of Bhagavad Gita, that it was spoken some 40 million years ago, whereas the Western scholars, they don't have history for more than 5,000 years. How can they go back to 40 million years? We have evidence that this Varnashrama system has been current at least 5,000 years ago. Right? So this has been, at least from Bhagavad Gita's version, it is 5,000 years ago this was existing. The Varnashrama system is also mentioned in the Vishnu Purana, Prabhupada says. All these Puranas were compiled by Vyasadeva 5,000 years ago, and it is all mentioned there. Varnashramacharavata Purushena Parapuman. The statement in Vishnu Purana. Just see, Prabhupada is giving a Vedic evidence now. Varnashrama Dharma is not a phenomenon of a historical period calculated in the modern age. The Western thinkers or the philosophers or the academicians, they are trying to confine the Indian way of, the Vedic way of understanding to their limited scope. Prabhupada is saying, no, it is beyond our scope. We cannot simply have this vision of, whether the Varnashrama is just recently happened. No. It is Sanatana, it is existing since creation, at least for our understanding. From Bhagavad Gita's version, it is 5,000 years old. So Prabhupada further says, it is very natural. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the comparison is given that just as in the body there are 4 divisions, the brain division, the arms division, the belly division, and the leg division. So in nature's way, these 4 divisions are existing in the social body. Very nice description. This is Bhagavatam description, that the 4 divisions of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, they are all actually the divisions comparing to the body of Lord Vishnu. Brahmana is compared to the brain division. Kshatriya is the arm division, protection. Belly division is Vaishyas. And the leg division is the Shudras, the workers. There is a class of men who are considered to be considered the brain, and there is a class of men who are considered the arms of the state, and there is a class of men who are called the productive class, and so on. Right? So there is no need of tracing the history. It is naturally existing from the day of creation. So further we'll see many such wonderful conversation is going to happen on this aspect of Varnashrama. For today, we are going to conclude here and then continue our discussions in the coming sessions. Thank you, everybody. Anybody has anything to ask, discuss, or comment, and take a few questions or comments. So we discussed from the conversation between Prabhupada and a professor of Indology in Russia, and Professor Katowski, who was actually the chairman of the Indian Studies Department at the University of Moscow, right? So very wonderful conversation is going on, and we'll continue our discussions in the next week again. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.